hopeless situation. Now you have a story.
The angels can't sing.
Angels can't sing in glory.
You're redeemed.
You're redeemed.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Here we
Welcome,
go.
everybody. This is Dave Stewart and Pamela Stewart. Welcome you once again to Conversations. He's there. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you with us once again for Conversations. Looking forward to a very interesting night tonight. There's a lot of things that are going on. It seems like there have been for months now, but even more so right now as the things that have specifically impacted us here in the city of Rochester have really had their impact. There's a lot of things that have been transpiring. We actually just got back in town.
Yes, we did.
We were out of town for a couple of days, and but we've been monitoring things kind of in the background from a few different sources, screening what's been happening. And this week there was a very special incident with Daniel Prude, a man. Well, it didn't happen this week. It actually happened back, I think, in March, right?
Yes, it happened in March.
But a lot of it was exposed this week, and it has caused quite a bit of stir. In fact, already we can see downtown, there are people who are gathering downtown. Last night, they said there was over 2,000 people downtown the past couple of days. Downtown Rochester.
Right here where we are.
Right, and people are gathering right now, once again, downtown to protest some of the treatment and things that have been going on. Has been it's a real rough time right now.
It is, yes.
And, there has been a lot that's been happening. And a lot of questions, a lot of people frustrated, particularly about how these things have been handled. People that seemingly are somewhat defenseless ended up dead.
Exactly.
And happen to be oftentimes Black and males. And it's been happening, throughout the country. This really got a lot of attention with George Floyd back several months ago. And it just now, it's really kind of hit personally here. And just the whole way this whole incident has been handled there's a lot of question. I know that the mayor was on just a few moments ago, and a few days ago. And it really threw people for a loop as well. So we do have a couple of people that are going to be joining us in the conversation right now, and they're with us right now. Bishop Jeffrey Melvin, and Pastor Ken Sayres. See them both on, and we'll get to them in just a second. They're going to be joining us in the conversation to talk about some of these things, some of the perspectives that are out there. This is what Conversations really is all about.
Yes, it is.
Right? Trying to at least bring everything to the table, bring some of the opinions and thoughts that are out there. And we do want to let you know as well, this is a call-in show. You can call us if you'd like to be involved in the conversation. The number here is area code 951-799-9032. You can feel free to call during the program at that number, and we'll try and get you on. Also, Judah Sealy is coming up a little bit later on the program as well, and going to be talking, we'll be shifting and talking a little bit about his music. And we have some other special music that we're going to throw in as well, which is a little bit surprised. It just came out, and I think it fits in real well with what we're dealing with right now. So we want to get ready to welcome our guests in right now. Jeffrey Melvin, Bishop Jeffrey Melvin's pastor here in town, and he's joining us along with Pastor Ken Sayres, also from Rochester. And we want to welcome them in with us right now. Let's see if they're off mic yet. Bishop, are you there?
I am here.
Welcome, sir.
I'm here.
Welcome, sir. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm encouraged. How you doing? Hello, madam.
I'm glad you're encouraged because these are tough times. And Pastor Ken, good to see you. Good to see you coming.
Absolutely.
Well,
can you hear me, guys? I can hear you good.
We hear you, man. We hear you. How are you guys doing, man? Because I know this has been a week, right?
Yeah, it's been a week. It's been a challenging week for us. We know we're in the national news, and it's been a powder keg. But I think if you have been in a season of prayer, the Lord he'll give you some discernment about, what's really going on. And so we're living in, they're rough times, but it's exciting times at the same time. Right.
So let's talk a little bit about what happened this week. This is an event that took place, I said, back in March, and I have the video, but honestly, I don't want to play it. It's just, it's rough. It's rough to watch and see what happens. And I'm sure many people have seen it already. and understand the details of this, but basically this was a man that had some kind of a mental breakdown and was also on drugs at the time. He was running out in the city in the middle of the cold, naked. The police were called to try and come help him.
Yes, well, his father called.
Right, his father called?
Yes, called the
His
police.
brother, I think it was his brother.
I think it was his brother, yeah.
Okay, and it was a family member.
But, they called to try and get some help and try and restrain him or whatever the case may be. The police show up. Let's just say the whole thing goes wrong. It goes bad. And in a matter of a couple of moments, it just completely turns into really a disaster for everybody. And so, since then there's been, the incident itself is one thing, but then all the things that have happened since then in terms of how the situation was handled or released or exposed, which all just broke out this week.
Yes.
These are some of the things that have just kind of turned things just topsy-turvy, right? An announcement comes out that this case, that this is something that happened, nobody known about it. People were wondering why they didn't know about it. The mayor comes out and explains that they knew about it, but weren't allowed to talk about it until such happened. And then the next day, I guess the information got sent to the family, and the family released it. And as a result of the family releasing it, then they were able to talk about it.
Yes.
So then they start this conversation, and then the videos come out from the officers, and it shows something which apparently looks completely different than what at least the mayor thought had happened here. And so from there, it just becomes an explosion, right? Everybody's kind of pointing at everybody, and it just seems to kind of all go haywire. So what, from your perspective, Ken, why don't you talk to us a little bit about, what do you think what's the frustration that's going on with people right now in terms of what they've seen and what they've witnessed this week?
I think it's a culmination of everything that's been going on for years. And really the frustration is we're not being respected or treated as equal.
Yes.
And that's the bottom line. There's no deference and there's no respect for us. When they see our color, their preconceived notions or ideations of who we are or what we are as a people kicks in, and then there's no humanity, there's no compassion, and that breeds frustration. I shouldn't have to speak your language to you and tell you I am human. That's the frustrating part.
Yes.
But do you think that they treated Daniel different because he was Black?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
When you look at the tape, it's kind of like they're really light and laissez-faire about the whole thing, right? And by the way, there appears to be both Black and white officers there. So one of the questions becomes, is this really a Black and white thing, or is this a police and Black thing, or police and, people were being caught up thing? What exactly is this that's going on? What are people feeling at this point?
Well, it's a white Black thing. And the issue is that white is in the police force. So then it becomes a white police and Black thing. And that can go across all your corporations or organizations, a systematic racism. That's the point of it. So when the officers come, and they can be doing their job, but when they see a Black person, whatever fear, whatever thoughts come into mind at that point is what kicks in. When they see a white person, something different kicks in, and they tend to handle it differently. I've posted on my Facebook, and there's other videos where the guy is hyped up on drugs or something, and he's got a weapon in his hand. He's coming at cops, and they find all of the training to de-escalate when it's someone that looks like them, because they have an understanding and they have a compassion. And our frustration is when you see us, immediately you go to, I'm scared for my life, and you can treat us any kind of way. Even if that is your training, your compassion and humanity has to kick in to say, okay, he's under control. They didn't do that.
Right. And do you think, the aspect of mental health, in terms of, the way this person and several people, this in particular, when somebody is this hyped up, this wound up, is there a different way that they should be treating people, addressing people versus what we're seeing?
Is that for me? Or
the brother said, if I may interject,
go ahead.
The brother said, my brother is having a psychotic episode, He's no threat to anybody except yourself.
Yeah.
Please don't kill my brother.
Right.
So it's obvious that the brother knew the potential what can happen because his brother was a black man.
Right.
And he's dealing with some cops, young white cops.
Right.
And here we have another situation like the situation that we had in Minnesota, where you have a black man on his face,
right,
with handcuffs. He's handcuffed behind his back.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's a knee in the chest, which compresses his lungs,
right,
inhibiting his ability to breathe. Then he is choking on his sputum.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen to the background, the cops are, like you said, laissez-faire. They're laughing. And then it's dehumanizing that he was on the ground naked. Even if he obviously tore his own clothes off, humanize the man. It's freezing cold. You can see the snowflakes. Cover him up.
Right.
Yeah, cover him up. And then even Pastor Stewart, when you see when he's put into the ambulance, you had the ETM saying, well, this is like, the delirium from excited delirium. You guys didn't do anything wrong. No, where are the chest compressions? Where is the expeditious nature of trying to save this human being's life?
Yeah,
just I think that
in all fairness, I did see
desensitized.
chest compressions on. I mean, I did see them working on him in terms of chest compressions, et cetera, at least on the ground for a few moments. Just to be fair, just to keep it even.
I don't think there was any overwhelming urgency in saving his life.
Right.
Right. First of all, like you said, and Mayor Lovely talked about this, that it was obvious racism because you don't treat white boys like that.
Right.
No.
They don't get slammed on the ground, and then I guess he's vomiting. And he goes, "Hey, buddy, you're right. Hey, buddy, you're right." That it was all the way around. So now, if this was textbook, then we need to change the textbook.
Exactly.
That's I think something
change the book.
Talk about. Right?
I agree. Yes.
Because I think certainly, just my opinion, I think it's really clear that the textbook needs to be changed. And in fact, several months ago, there was a small forum, I think on CNN, with about 3 of the major, chief of police from major areas in the country. And they were all saying basically the same thing. There needs to be national standards. There needs to be retraining of officers across the board in terms of, this is back after George Floyd, and they were saying certain moves disallowed and not in some areas, but not in others. And they were saying this really does need to be looked at. I think that's 100% true.
Yeah.
Do you need to have your full weight or half of your weight on the middle of his back? He was not a big guy.
And he wasn't violent. He was talking a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he wasn't
not violent.
Yes.
What damage can you do? I worked for the state for 11 years. I worked in the industry. I've done flow reduction. I've done restraints. And at no time in my time, I also worked on the psych unit at Mental Developmental Center.
Yes.
At no time, and this is archaic, this is back in the early 80s, up until 93. I've never had to put my 250 pounds, back then it was 250, it's a little more right now. So I never had to put all of my weight onto a client or a resident or an individual to subdue them.
Right.
Yes.
Yes,
I understand exactly what you're saying, because I have worked in mental health with adults, boys, men, just women, everyone. And we are, as mental health professionals, we are trained to restrain a person as having a mental breakdown, that a person that's in mental crisis. We are all trained to subdue that person, to keep them from hurting themselves and other people. Never once have we hurt anyone, not to even think about kill anyone. And I'm a small woman. I'm 5'1" and 127 pounds. I have been trained, and I have been able to subdue a person that was in mental health crisis. I said that to say, why aren't the police? The police need to have the same type of training. Killing someone should not be the last resort. It's not even necessary if they're properly trained.
There was actually on television, I was watching Spectrum, the news a little while ago, just to catch up on what was being said. And there was a group there from mental health workers that were saying that there should be a mental health group that's on call and available to call at any time. Pastor Ken, I want to ask you, what do you, I mean, in terms, again, I think I'm seeing both white and black officers here. What do you think happens with the black officers in this? I mean, are they just following the training? Are they just following what everybody else is doing? I mean, do they not speak up? What do you think is going through their mind?
Well, in all fairness, I didn't really see black officers there, but for the most part, what happens, whether you're black or white officers, when your leading officers are doing something, you tend to support them, even when you don't think that it might be right. And in the situation with George Floyd, two of the officers at least checked with the guy that had his knee on his neck, like, hey, you think we should turn him over? Do you think we should? And he told them, no, I got this. And so there's a culture and a hierarchy, even within the police department, that they can't break rank and they can't go against their other brothers. So that brings us to that point of, if there's 12 bad officers and 1,000 good ones, but the 1,000 don't say anything about the 12, then you got 1,012 bad officers.
Or
and there's
12 of the senior officers.
Right, because then you take the there was a case in Buffalo where the woman actually jumped in and helped the victim. An officer was over choking or whatever, and she helped separate it. And that woman was penalized. That woman was fired. That woman lost her Social Security. She lost her pension. She lost everything. They're now fighting it. But that type of stuff lets you know that going against this blue line will not be tolerated. Exactly. We support each other through and through, and it won't be tolerated. So it puts those officers in a bad position, because if they do anything that's remotely to go against their fellow officer, they can be shunned by the entire department.
Yes, and threatened their families, everything. Yeah.
So, the mayor's office came out.
I actually had that in my notes, Ken. That's a good observation. I actually had that in my notes. That was in 2008. The officer's name was Carol Horn. Yes. She stopped a chokehold from a victim who she thought would have died. And when she stopped the chokehold, she got fired. Now, this was years and years ago. Now it's back under review. And so she said back then, had I not stepped in, I believe my fellow officer would have killed this suspect.
Wow.
Right. Now they're looking at giving her back pay from years ago, 2008. They're looking at giving her the back pay based upon these current cases going on.
So I was just watching some of the video, trying to track through some of what was happening here. But what do you? So the mayor's office now involvement in this, because they came out with one statement at first, and then the next day all of a sudden there's a statement. The mayor basically said that the information she received from the chief of police was misdirected from what we now know to be evident by the videotape. What are your thoughts about that? Because there are a lot. I mean, I watched, again, I was out of town, but I was watching the news conference online. There were a lot of haters on that video. I mean, I was amazed by how many people were coming after the mayor on this. What is your thought in terms of where the mayor stands on this and accountability that she has? Bishop, you want to talk about that?
Ken, you can go ahead.
Ken?
So it's as far as the haters, the mayor has had those since her first term in running. And it's been vile, it's been vitriol, and a large majority of it comes from people that don't even live within the city limits. Yes. So you gotta just sort of take that as white noise at some point. And you do have to take it serious as well, but for the most part, that hatred for her being young, being black, being a leader in this city, that's gonna come with the territory for her.
But where overall do you think the people are at this point? Because prior to now, even with the things that happened, even around George Floyd, we had all the riots, et cetera, at that point, the police department and the mayor's office were in alignment with the protesters. They felt like they were on the same side. And everybody was kind of separated against these rioters, especially the ones that came from out of town.
Mm-hmm.
The question now is there a division now that's happening amongst the people in this city against either the mayor or the police department? Certainly it feels like there is a divide where the people in Rochester are saying, look, the police department itself needs to get straight. Where do you see people putting the mayor in terms of on that line at this point?
I think it's fragmented in the city of Rochester. In all fairness and honesty, there are people that are supportive of the mayor, and but then there's a majority of the people that's organizing these protests and these rallies, and they've held a press conference yesterday, and they made their demands very clear that they want the mayor to step down. They want Laurent Singletary to step down. They want these laws and legislations put into place, and they want the officers that's involved that were suspended, they want them fired. So you have different pockets of people that are demanding and wanting different things, and I think that that's fine. The part is that we are united in the sense of we with brown skin are people too. Now, what we're wanting to come out of this at the end result is we want to be respected and valued and appreciated as human beings and have the exact same rights and courtesies that everyone else that has a right to being human has. Some want, different other things. Now, I will say, I've been going to some of the protests the last couple of days and last night, and some of it is political. And I'm gonna be very honest and clear in everything. So I'm not gonna overly state one thing over the other. There's political aspirations. There's people when they say they want the mayor to step down, they have people that they want to step in. And so everyone has agendas. And so for me, the agenda isn't to support any one particular person arriving into office. The agenda is for you to see me as human.
Right.
So I think that's the basic agenda, and I think we all want that. But I think that we have to look at how many voices are in on this collaborative effort. You have voices that are grassroots from Rochester, but then you have some people that are transplanted from other places. You have anarchists that clearly all they want to do is riot, turn police cars upside down, and then so now. Ken, I'm challenged with being on a video marching, and what's being said is, "F the police, no justice, no peace." And I'm I'm going down the street like this, and I'm wait, what did y'all just say? They said, "F the police, no justice, no peace." And then later on, and Ken, you were there. As it gets later on into the day, it turned from a peaceful protest to let's start throwing rocks at the police. Right. And so I think there's a mixed bag, maybe a mixed bag of nuts. I don't know. That's with the protesters. And so I think we need to delineate where the church, because people say, well, where's the church? The church has always been in the forefront of civil rights and human rights. We've always had our voice to go forward. And if you listen to what the mayor said she was sickened by the video.
Right.
And I think we have to make sure, because in all conflicts, we need a nemesis.
Yeah.
Right. So there's been more vitriol going towards the mayor than the police who killed the kid.
Right. That's one of the challenges is we talk about trying to be unified. I mean, the only way to really effectively get something done. And I think that's been one of the challenges of this whole movement since George Floyd is people are just so scattered. It's very emotional right now, first of all, which is to be expected, right? It's a very emotional time. I mean, it's charged up some of us who just would have never been involved in anything like this in the past. But things have become so upfront, so real, so visual that people are charged up. And there's always going to be an emotional aspect of something like this where people are going to have to come up and just express themselves. And granted, there are people that are church people, there are people that are not church people, but we do have in common the fact that we are frustrated. So the question though becomes, and this is what has to happen with all movements of this type, somewhere it has to transition from being that emotional frustration to a specific ask. This is what we want to see change. This is what we want to see happen. And in the past, there have been leaders that have come into the front to help identify what those specific asks are going to be. Right now, we have asked from totally eliminating police departments to all the way to, you know, all kind of places. And unless we can find some common unified, this is what we need to see happen, it's going to be very difficult for the movement to change from a lot of emotion to something that really is going to get something done.
Well, I think they've been asking. They want the mayor to step down. They want the chief of police to step down. I think it's the way you ask. I'll give you an example.
That's going to really bring the right change, I think.
Right. So I was at the press conference for Reverend Stewart the other day in the front row. I heard somebody say they're about to shut this down. And I'm looking around. I'm like, what day? Who about to shut it down? Next thing you know, here come Black Lives Matter. They're about 100 deep. They go into the back of the church, right? First Church of God on Clemson Street. They snatch the microphone from Reverend Stewart and they push him. And they say, we taking this joint over. Y'all had it for 50 years. Now you're going to hear from us. You don't have to invite us. We coming in. We taking over. And it was uncivil. Now, wait a minute. I understand your frustration, but you can't compare yourself to the civil rights movement of the 60s because King and those people were not turning over cars. But Malcolm X folks weren't turning over cars. So sometimes your message gets mixed up. Your message gets messed up in the method and how you present your message. If you break my window, I'm not hearing your words. I'm looking at my window.
Right. So I guess the question is, where can we go from here? You know, and go back to as well to both of you. Where does the church fit into this? What kind of role should the churches be playing in this? How do we get unification in what we're trying to do here? I imagine, by the way, that in that time frame, as we did, you know, you saw Malcolm X, you saw the Muslims, you saw the Black Panthers, you saw Martin Luther King. You had fractions and factions of groups that felt we need to handle it this way. And ultimately, they needed to try and come to some kind of alignment to find the best way to pursue one common ask. So how do we do that? What role does the church play in that? How can we come together?
There's a lot of different aspects that's taking place. And like I said, when we're able to be seen and respected and valued, then of course our ask and our thoughts will be respected and valued. How long do we have to go and stand before council or go to the mayor's office and seek a meeting, or go to the county executive office and seek a meeting, or ask to speak to the sheriff or the police chief and ask them, hey, this is happening, can we have this? Right? You can ask all you want. You can ask every day and nothing is changing. So what begins to happen is, I'm going to have to break your window. Now, I'm not speaking that to condone it. I'm just using the point of analogy of Bishop said that, you break my window, I'm not going to hear from you. I'm not going to hear what you have to say. Well, the reality is that we've been asking for all these years and you still haven't heard what we had to say. So now if we can't have peace, then there's no one that's having peace. And I think that's the mindset of what's happening. So when I say the agenda for me is totally for us to be seen as human, then our voices can be heard. Now, I believe that there is a place for the protesting and the marchers. I think everybody has a role. There's also a place for those that want to strategize and come together and put our asks and our demands and things of that nature, and things that's reasonable and that's obtainable. Here's the problem, though. It's a heart issue at the core of everything, because we can put laws and legislation in place, but if we don't change the heart of man, they're just going to find their loopholes, right? Because we did come up with affirmative action. And what did they do around that? They said, well, we're going to hire Asians, we're going to hire white women. They found loopholes to not hire us. We have all of these different things that we put in place. They just find loopholes. So it's a heart that's at matter. Now, the church on the other end, for me, I think because of the pain, we're out there marching and they're saying, you know, F the police, and they're doing all this. We have to understand who we are as a church. We have to understand what we're doing there. One, when they say the church is never there, Bishop is correct that the church is on the front line, because if you ask the people that's in the march, how many of you guys are saved, how many are believers, you will find that they are there. The visual of it is you want to see the church steeple itself. You want to see the building marching up the street, and that's just not the case. You have to understand that, Pastor, if your parishioners are there at that march, then you are there at that march. When people see me at that march, they see Pastor Cross and Glory House at that march. That's just what it is, and they see a man of God that's there at that march. It doesn't necessarily have to be as blatant as a physical church to say where the church is. The reality of it is the church has always been ground workers and grassroots workers from the beginning. Check all of our nonprofit organizations and any of our helps, jobs and businesses that's out there. You will find believers with compassionate hearts doing that work. They just don't have to do it with the banner of the church, quote unquote. What I would like to see and what I would like to call to action is for all of our pastors to tell their church members to show up at these rallies. We need to show up in force. We need to show up with however many churches and members we can. If we can have 1,000 church members there and everybody, their sacred dance team got their war sacred dance clothes on, and our flag ministries got their war flags, and we have the bloodstained banner of Christ, and we have our own radio and music that we're putting into the atmosphere, and we're interceding while we're praying. They can be saying F the cops, they can be doing whatever they're doing, but we know what we're doing. And at the end of the day, we're telling everybody, you have to understand this is not just them, because when you gun them down, you're gunning me down too. There's no separation in that. And that's where we can come together, and that's where we can find these different moves. Now, for those that got to meet at the tables, the thinkers and the strategists, they have to go to those tables and not turn their backs on people that's doing groundwork. You can't, you got to go in and say, look, they're hurt and they're frustrated. So now what are we going to do? You're not going to get me to turn my back on them and broker a peace deal with you that benefits my own agenda. Our agenda is together. We're connected. And that's what's happening. We have a lot of people in political positions and in their jobs and in the city that they won't put their face to it and they won't say anything because they're out of fear of losing their income. They're out of fear of losing respect and reputation from someone, when these people that are marching are putting their lives on the line. They're putting their bodies on the line. And so that's where we come together, and that's how we can move forward as a church and as a collective.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
Bishop, we're going to give you the last word on this, by the way. Our time is kind of wound up, so we're going to give you the last word.
Let me say something real quick on that. I agree with what Ken is saying about that if we're going to come together, let's come together as a church. You know, Peter is with the Zealots. The Zealots were a fact of the Jews. They used to catch drunken soldiers going home, Roman soldiers, get them in the alley, cut their throat, and they were killing them all one by one. Those were the Zealots. That's why Peter kept a knife on him, because he's a part of the Zealots. Now, I think where the rubber meets the road at right now is what's happening is in 1830, Charles Finney ran a revival in Rochester. Over 100,000 people got saved. The real thing that's going on right now is the devil knows that prayer is going on right now for revival to get sparked. A prophecy has come for years saying that the revival is going to start in the black church in the Northeast. The reason why Rochester is being attacked right now on a worldwide basis is because there's prayer going on here. Your folks are praying, my folks are praying, Glory House is praying, and we're praying for revival. That's the real thing right there. We have a mayor that's a Christian. She's a saved woman. She's praying for revival along with all of us, and the devil is distracting us with all this stuff going on. We need to pray that God will give us a wholesale revival, that people will get saved by the tens, the hundreds, and the thousands, because we're pushing right up against the rapture right now. But we're also pushing up against nation against nation, which is ethnos against ethnos. What the president is pushing right now is that if he loses, he wants there to be a race war. And this country is getting positioned for a race war. So we got to go back to the Bible and look at the map that the Bible has given us. This is not a rehearsal. We're in the end time now. We need to continue to pray for revival, that sons and daughters will get saved and filled with the Holy Ghost. That's the time we're in. That's the real thing. It is not the chariot of fire. young man. It is not a chariot, it's the whirlwind. Elijah went up in the whirlwind. The chariot of fire is a distraction. These things is going on. They're important. They tug at our hearts. But the real thing is the church needs to be praying that the Lord will send a revival and so we can reap a harvest getting ready for the rapture.
Amen.
Bishop. Listen, thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming on. We've got a lot of comments. People are watching and commenting on that. I hope you guys get a chance to see the comments are on the page. Appreciate everything that everybody's saying about this subject as well. There definitely be more conversation as we go. I believe, I had somebody that was on the line that sent us a message earlier today, and they were saying, I don't want to talk when there's enough talk, but I think we have to talk in order to come to agreement, to come to
let's reason together.
Absolutely. Yes. So there'll definitely be more of this. Appreciate you guys coming on, and we'll talk more in the future.
Amen. Thanks
for having us, Pastor.
All right.
Lady, bless you both.
Bye-bye now.
Right. Bye-bye. Good job, Kim.
So I want to let everybody know that we will be continuing with Judah Sealy in just a moment. I want to take us to something to close this part out, which I think is very interesting, and it comes from a young man who was actually a close friend of ours from the family. His name is Alex Paris. This song, I think, is a great transition from where we've been coming out. It just came out today from Alex, and it's a powerful song called Press Through. He is the son of Bishop Gregory Paris and Myra Paris. I don't know if he knows this, but actually my first wife and I were the ones that gave him his first drum set back when he was about 1 or 2 years old. And, and since then he's become an excellent musician. So I just want to share a little bit of this in our transition, because I really believe.
Look out my window, all the things I see, how south they go. I wish we all could live in harmony. No race against race and all equality. They try to tell me it's just a pipe dream. It'll never happen the way I see. But I say that's just the way it could be. So all you gotta do is breathe. Breathe through the pain. What may till the clouds run away, then you'll see a bright sunny day. Just be cool and be you. All you gotta do is press through. Press through my blood. Throughout the world, I wish we could see Martin's dream unfurled. All the colors on one palette, they go perfectly. So why is it that he isn't any different than me? They try to tell me it's just a pipe dream. It'll never happen the way I see. But I say that's just the way it could be. All you gotta do is breathe. Breathe through the pain. Breathe, come what may, till the clouds roll away. Then you'll see a bright sunny day. Just be cool and
everybody who's been with us on the program. Hope you've enjoyed the conversation so far. This is conversations. And sometimes we got to have some intense ones. And this is the time for some intense conversations. So thanks for Bishop Jeffrey Melvin and for Pastor Ken Sayres for joining us. I'm sure we'll have some more people on because I don't think this is going away in the weeks to come. So So we'll talk more about it. But right now we're transitioning. We have another special guest with us, Judah Sealy, who is one of our local Rochester musicians and really a talented young man that I've had the opportunity to interact with now for a few years. In fact, he is a musician at the church that I was ministering music at several years ago, Church of Love. And so glad to have him tuning on with us because he's going to talk to us a little bit about some of what's happening in his music and musical career. All right. Come online. Judy, you there?
Hello.
Hey, man. How are you?
Good. Let me turn on the video. Sorry.
Good. All right. There he is. Oh, he's in the studio, too. Check this out. Check it out. Perfect, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Oh, man. Listen, I'm you know about studios. I'm in here multitasking. I got my hands crossed. We built this little thing to make this show work. Man, I'm glad to have you with us. How's everything going?
Everything's going good. Thanks for asking. Everything's going good.
You probably heard a little bit of the conversation which we were just in, which was quite on the intense side of things. But,
I can imagine, yeah.
There's a lot of things that are going on right now, and sometimes we do need some things to kind of help us breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
And so music is certainly one of those things that expresses itself in a lot of different ways. I wanted to play that little song there from Alex. But in addition to that, you've got some great new music, I understand, that's come out as well.
Yes. I had an album that released on August 14th, my 35th birthday, a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, nice. A week after mine, by the way. So,
cool. August babies. Yeah. It released on August 14th. It's called Legacy. It's my third full-length album.
So your third. Excellent. So talk to us a little bit about your career. I mean, you've got a keyboard behind you. You've been a keyboard player. I first knew you as that, and then the saxophone started showing up. Talk to us a little bit about, what's been happening in your music career.
Well, I started saxophone and piano around the same time. I went to School of the Arts. I graduated from there in 2002. And, with a focus in music. And then I went to Roberts Wesleyan and I graduated from there, 2007. And I was doing piano and saxophone around the same time. I started playing for my first job was playing at a church, Newborn Fellowship Christian Center under Pastor Warren and Perdita Meeks. And that was in 2001. And then I was playing piano there, playing saxophone every now and then. And then when I left there, I went to Church of Love in 2006, and I've been there ever since. And so I've been doing more piano, but saxophone was my primary instrument because I kind of started that first.
So what brought you back to it? What brought you back to say, I got to really get back into that saxophone?
Let me see. Well, I was playing it, off and on, but I was coasting on natural ability. Like I didn't devote myself to it until about 2009, I would say. I was playing, with different people, nothing major or consistent. I was playing with Mike Peace a lot. We did a lot of different gigs there. And but then in 2009, Carlton Wilcox, he was doing things he does. He's always doing music in the city, and he asked me to be a sideman on one of his shows. And then I really had I gravitated towards it. Like, this is something I can see myself doing. Playing in a band, having my own band, playing my own music. So in addition to playing with him and different artists, I started doing my own thing, started my own band around about 2010, 2011. And my wife was playing bass with me at the time. And then started making music, started producing music, and then the rest is history. So
on from there.
Yeah.
So this is your third album.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What do you think stands out, or what's unique about this album? I know a lot of times you make music like this, it evolves.
Yes.
What's uniquely in this album?
Well, this album, each album signifies a milestone in my life. My first album came out in 2015. It's called The Arrival. It signified me arriving on the scene, sort of kind of. And then Welcome Home, my second full-length album. I don't count my Christmas album, as I have 3 albums and a Christmas album. But anyway, Welcome Home.
Spotify as we speak, by the way.
Oh, wow. Cool. So, so my second full-length album, Welcome Home, that came out in 2018, that was around the time that I purchased my first home. So,
nice.
Welcome Home. But it also talked about me being comfortable as an artist to the point where I'm saying, this is who I am, this is my sound, come into my home and check out my music, you know what I mean? So that it was kind of like that. And then this album, Legacy, was, the album is dedicated to my daughter, because she's the beginning of my legacy, what people will hopefully remember me by.
How old is your daughter?
She's 14 months, 15 months.
You gotta be heavily into music already then. You gotta saxophone, play saxophone in her mouth. Come on the keyboard right now.
Well, she knows what a piano is. She every time she sees one, she goes up and plays it. So she knows what it is.
Gotta begin early.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
Talk about the album in terms of the music. You have a favorite? You have a baby on here, or is it all?
I like them all. I can't pick up because they each of them kind of hopefully gives a different feeling.
Right.
Musically, the title track "Legacy" is probably my favorite, because the music in there, if you pay close attention, you can hear a lot of the different musical elements that I grew up listening to, or like old school R&B, like Frankie Beverly Mays, Earth, Wind and Fire, Gap Band. All those influences are in that song, and they're intentional. Like I made that song to sound that way on purpose, because it talks about with Legacy, the music that we grew up listening to, and the songs that those artists are remembered by. I put that in, as a part of my legacy because their legacy influenced mine. So that's yeah.
Since you brought that one up, I think we should listen to this.
Okay.
Right?
Cool.
This is Legacy from the album. This is one of those smooth cuts, right?
Thank you.
So I have to say this, I listened to it very quickly, but your playing has really developed.
Thank you.
I'll tell you that,
Thank you.
Yeah, you and I, I'm sure, have talked about this, but I used to be a saxophone player.
Yes, I remember, yeah.
Right, and I kind of did the same thing with you. I was primarily a sax player, and then you get into churches and they let you keyboard player.
Yeah.
So actually, I was did a lot of vocals, but then I started playing keyboards for most of the churches. I did not pull back into saxophone, unfortunately, like you did, but I still know what I'm thinking and feeling.
Yeah.
And yeah, your playing on this one has continued to develop.
Thank you. I'm glad it's noticeable.
Yes, it sounded good. So do you get a lot of calls from outside of the area? How far is your music spreading?
All over the country, all over the world, actually. I get, people from South Africa who are fans of smooth jazz. I got people and I know one of my Facebook friends, her name is Lori. She's from Italy. And she's enjoying my music. I have another Facebook friend from Japan who, music has made it out there. There's smooth jazz fans all over the world. And fortunately with Sirius XM watercolors, if you have satellite radio, it goes everywhere at the same time, And I remember when I went into Niagara Falls on the Canada side, when all the other American radio stations stopped playing, like I heard my song on there, I'm like, oh, it's playing up here too, and they heard it all the way up in Vancouver, and it's gone pretty far. So.
I mean, that's a huge difference now. The internet makes even this show. I mean, we have people that are watching this show all the way in Dubai.
Oh wow!
Rio,
Kuwait and
that's awesome.
All kinds of places. It's amazing. Africa as well. We got friends in South Africa. And the Middle East, you hear from the Middle East and you're like, what? How? What? Things like that.
Yeah.
But
that's
it
awesome.
makes a huge difference, doesn't it, in terms of getting that exposure and
absolutely
following.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm grateful.
So one of my other favorites here that I like is TBT. Now,
TBT.
What is that?
TBT. Hashtag, Throwback Thursday, when people post like pictures of themselves that, from way back when. This song was, trying to evoke that New Jack Swing kind of style of music that originated in like the throwback kind of music from like the early 90s. So I was kind of channeling that when I made this song to, it's like, oh, it's a house party, hey, you know, that kind of style of music. So I was going for that when I made that song.
Excellent, excellent. Some really nice music. Then you have some things that are a little bit calmer, a little quieter. I mean, you're kind of across the map here, you know. Yeah. Fitting a lot of nice molds here, a lot of different abilities. So what's next? Where do you think you head from here?
Usually whenever I just release an album, I purposely don't record any original music for like months, you know, like 6 months, maybe 7, 8, so that I don't, because if I do it right after, then it'll sound just like what I left, you know, so I purposefully don't make any of my own music. I have been working on producing some music for some other artists and doing, some session work. I currently, even though my single was on the Billboard charts for 2 months, there's a song that's out now that just broke on the number 28 on the Billboard charts by an artist named Jacob Webb, and I'm featured on that song. And then I have another song that's coming out on September 18th. Well, it's not my song, but I was featured on another artist song, a guy named Greg Manning, big time hit making producer in smooth jazz. I'm featured on that song. So, you know, I may have been taking a break from my own music, but I will be playing on other guys, you know, other artists' songs for the next couple months. So
I mean, there's not nearly as much live travel going on right now, of course, because of COVID. Yeah. But, you know, there is a network, as you're describing, of things out there, people and things like that. You find yourself making those connections, and you know, what do you do anything intentionally, or is it just kind of how it happens?
It's the Lord. I would be just chilling, and then a guy would reach out on Facebook and say, "Hey, I love your music. You know, would you be willing to play on this song?" You know, and it's usually that's how it works. I've never, well, not never, but it's rare that I would say, "Hey, I would love to be featured on your song." It's like a guy would come out and reach out to me, because I don't think I'm enough of a artist, because even though these guys are like my peers, I'm still fans of theirs, you know, so I don't see myself going to a guy and say, "Hey, I'm a big fan of yours. Let's work together." I guess I'm too nervous to do that. So, but they would reach out to me and say, you know, you're amazing. You know, can you play on my song? And I would just, my mind would be blown and be like, yes, absolutely. You know, so that's really how it's been happening. The Lord has really opened a lot of doors for me in that regard. And I'm very grateful.
You know, this is why we get agents.
Maybe one
for you, man.
one day I'll get me an agent or manager or whatever.
Whatever, yeah, get somebody out there. It's great. It's good, you know, as long as you can keep the right balance with your family life that are going on. You know, that's important, because you know, these things can sweep you up and just take you.
Oh, I know. My family, my wife, she keeps me very grounded, and my daughter. You know, my daughter don't care about none of that. You know, it's very humbling. You know, you come from a gig where you're signing autographs, and then you go right to, you know, changing diapers. You know, it's like in here is none of that matters. You know, you just dada.
Right. Congratulations to you, man. We definitely appreciate being on and appreciate what's happening with you and your music. And
no problem. Thank you.
And everything that's coming up, you know, and we'll look forward to hearing more from it in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Not a problem. You have a good one now.
All right, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So once again, want to thank Judah for joining us as well. And also prior to that, you know, we had an interesting conversation going on with Bishop Melvin and also Pastor Ken. There are other people I know that want to get involved in this conversation. That, you know, we try to do a little bit of both, a little bit of serious, a little bit of light, but things that need to be talked about or exposed. And there are a lot of things right now that really do need to be talked about.
Yes.
And so
we
definitely want to continue that as we go forward. So next week we'll be back with more special guests, back with more conversations. We, as a news show, we try and kind of keep up with what's happening. So we can't always predict what'll be the conversation next week. But we want to
No.
make it the things that are the most important for us to continue to talk about. Hopefully you enjoyed the program and you'll connect up with us again in the future. On next coming up will be tomorrow morning.
Yes.
For those of you who are on our Facebook page at the church, we'll have our morning service tomorrow, 11:30 a.m.
11:30.
You are invited to come and be a part of that service, either live here in Rochester or on Facebook. It'll be streamed as well at 11:30 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then also midweek Bible study during the week on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. I keep saying 7 a.m.
7 p.m.
Is that the Lord? The Lord saying something?
No.
I said
it's 7 p.m.
She said no.
It's 7 p.m.
I said that the other day and people
then-
looked at me and said 7 p.m.
7 p.m. Yes. But at 8 a.m.
8 a.m. on Saturday.
I think
Right.
that's where the confusion is coming in at.
I don't know where it is, but
Yes.
I don't know. We got much. I check with the Lord. He might
We've
be
got so
sitting
much
saying
going on.
that, but we'll be back tomorrow and then Wednesday and then next Saturday. Hopefully you'll join us. Tell somebody about the program if you enjoy it. We'd love to have you share it, connect up, like it. Thank you for all the comments. Lots of different comments that came up.
Yes.
And if you're on the church page, you'll be able to go on and see some of the things and input that people have about this incident that's been going on and what's happening. We appreciate you all, and we'll look forward to connecting up with you again on next week. So until then, I think we're ready to call it a night, right?
Yes.
Because we got other things we got to do.
Oh, yes.
Gotta get ready for tomorrow, things like that. So tomorrow's another day. Folks, everybody have a good evening. And we'll look forward to connecting up with you on next week. Leaving you with music from Hezekiah. It's got to get better.
Your life has been
Good night, everybody.
out of control. You're confused.